Hey everybody, welcome back to the Texas Soccer Summit. Final day here on Saturday of what's been a great 4 days of panels, getting to know people around the soccer community, presented by the Striker Texas, which is your new home for soccer coverage across the Lone Star State. My name is Chris Bils, co-founder and senior writer of the Striker Texas. And in this hour of the Texas Soccer Summit is brought to you by Gloria, a new app where football fans and players can share content and interact with each other. On Gloria, you'll be able to talk about your favorite players, teams, and topics, easily find awesome football content to watch, and share your skill and passion for the game from anywhere with the entire world. Gloria will be your home for football online, launching in late 2021. And in this hour, I'm pleased to be joined by Guadarrama, 15-year pro from Austin, Texas. Grew up and went to high school at Cedar Park, and spent 10 years playing in Mexico before coming back to the U.S. and playing for San Antonio UFC and Austin Bold. So if you're from either of those two markets or fan of either of those two teams, you definitely know who Sonny is. If you don't know him, we're going to catch you up to speed in this hour and get to know what it's like to be a pro soccer player. Sonny, I know you don't have too many secrets, but we're going to get into the secret life of a pro soccer player. Welcome in, and maybe introduce yourself a little bit. Tell everybody a little bit about your upbringing and your passion for the game.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Striker Texas. It's good that we finally have our own program about soccer. I think this is something that the soccer community needed, just more information, more news, more buzz about the game, because I think Austin's just a soccer city and it's been a secret this whole time. So thank you guys for doing this work. Um, like you said, I grew up here in Austin, specifically in Cedar Park, Texas. So I went to high school, went to middle school there. Back when Cedar Park was kind of booming on its own, I remember going to a different elementary school every single year because the way that they zoned out the schools. So I ended up moving to like five different elementary schools during my 5 years of elementary, and then finally getting to go to Cedar Park Middle School, which I was super excited. I was already playing club soccer, but to play middle school soccer was something that I had definitely looked forward to. I want to say, no, when my brothers were going to school, middle school soccer was co-ed. When I was
Mhm.
in school, middle school soccer was A and B team. So you could make the eighth grade team as a seventh grader, and that was like, ooh, you're on the
Oh
A
man,
team and you're a seventh grader. That's that's where I wanted to
so
be.
that was definitely yeah, that's what you did, huh?
That's what I did. The coach of the team was the Cedar Park High School coach, so he already knew um, that. I mean, about me maybe, but I have two older brothers that were already playing at Cedar Park High School, so it made it easy. Um, I found probably, I mean, I love playing club soccer, but playing for my school was probably more fun than playing
Hmm.
club soccer. Club soccer, going to like tournaments, big tournaments was fun. Uh, but something about playing even middle school and high school soccer was has like a special place inside me. So graduated
Yeah.
from Cedar Park High School, um, played all 4 years there. Um, then I decided to go play at Campbell University, which was not a known school and probably still isn't that very much of a known school around, but I
The fight,
think
the fighting camels.
the Fighting Camels, that's right. I think now it's probably a better recognized soccer school. And I don't know how many people from Austin had ever gone to Campbell. I believe that my brother was the first one, maybe, or close to being the first one. And then there was like a wave of players from Austin that ended up going to Campbell. A very small wave, maybe a very not very potent wave, but a wave of players that ended up going to Campbell. I didn't go to any other, um, like you were allowed to go do official visits to schools, and I already knew that I wanted to play with my brother, so it was an easy deal. I took my only visit to Campbell and made myself a fighting camel, even though I had pretty good offers from a bunch of other schools, and they were probably surprised that I chose Campbell, but they didn't know that my brother was already there. I don't know if I've told you the story, but the coach at the time was Doug Hess. He was also the ODP coach in North Carolina back when ODP was the way to get
Yeah.
into the national team, the only way. Um, so he was the coach at North Carolina, and we would battle it out because North Carolina had a really good team, mostly kids that had played out from Castle and Charlotte, which were like two big youth clubs that were they were pretty good. So when South Texas would play against him, he knew who I was, but he didn't know that my brother was Willie
Mm,
until maybe when Willie got there, he figured out that he knew who I was because we'd play against each other all the time in ODP, but he didn't put two and two together that Willie was actually my brother. So when he found that out, he was obviously excited about that because he knew like, oh well, I might have a chance of getting him. So and Doug is, is a great guy and a great coach, and he definitely helped me. And Buse Creek, if you ever go, you got to really pay attention because you might miss it. It's about as big as the neighborhood that I live in right now. It had one stoplight before. Uh, I think when I was at the school, it had the smallest gym out of any Division One school in the country. We would make a lot of noise, but at the end of the day, there was I don't know how many people fit in the gym. It was very small. But as we were there, they were starting to build the new gym. Um, there was no football team at Campbell, so soccer was like the main sport. I feel like we were pretty successful that a whole bunch of people would come out. The field was like super nice and it was on a hill, so we didn't have like a lot of stands, but there was a lot of hill space where people could come and watch. And the year that I was at Campbell, Campbell did really well and we lost in the we lost in the like our conference final, which hurt
yeah.
because we had beaten that team in the season, and no one really had expected Campbell to do anything. And we ended up knocking all these teams off, and at the end, we lose, I think, in double overtime. And Campbell, at the time, and probably still now, doesn't really have like a great shot at getting an NCAA bid. So the only way of going on to the NCAAs was winning the conference and be able to go that way. So we did not win our conference final, and we did not get a bid to go into the NCAA, which was kind of sad. So
Yeah.
that
So
was
of course, yeah, that's your kind of early beginnings. But where did the pro soccer dream start for? How were you first exposed to professional soccer, like in your house? And when did you start thinking that that was something that you wanted to do? Or I assume you and Willie, you mentioned your brother. Willie, I know played a year pro as well. But when did you guys start thinking that the professional was the dream, and what did that look like to you guys as kids?
for me, I would say that came in as early as I can remember. If you were to ask me as a kid what I wanted to do, I was going to tell you I'm going to be a professional soccer player. I wouldn't say like, well, I hope to be or I want to be. I would say I'm going to be a professional soccer player, and that was really the only thing on my mind 24/7, kind of like an obsession about wanting to train, wanting to be the best, and wanting to make it. There wasn't a lot of soccer going on. Um, I think the very first pro game I'd ever been to was we drove down from Austin to Guadalajara and we watched Atlas
Mm.
play against Tecos in Estadio Jalisco. My dad had took us and it was like, wow, this is what I want to do. I think I was probably like 10. Um, my dad took me to the World Cup to watch Argentina versus Bulgaria. Um, Bulgaria was here in Austin during that time, and they would train out at Southwestern University. And they also played against Tecos, if I'm not mistaken, at Burger Center, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I
They
think it was
played
Burger, and
like
yeah.
a prep game here, and those were kind of like the only games I ever got to go to as a kid. So they're pretty fresh on my mind because there wasn't much soccer going on. I remember going to a Dallas Burn game when they were called the Burn. Um,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, we were at the game. It was a 3v3 tournament, and if you signed up for the 3v3 tournament, you got free tickets to go to the game. So we went to the game, and I think this is what happened because it was a long time ago. A ball like went into the stands, and I quickly got it and threw it back to the player on Dallas. And I don't know if they scored or whatnot, but at the end of the game, Jason Christ came back and gave me his jersey. So I got
That's
a
amazing.
Jason Christ jersey at the game, which was cool.
Do you
Um,
still have it?
I think I do have it somewhere. I mean, it's retro. It's an
Right.
old Nike Dallas Burn jersey. Um, so that was like a moment that I remember. We also went to another 3v3 tournament in Orlando, and it just so happened that the national team was training at Disney at the same time. So I got to meet Tony Miola, Eddie Pope, who else was there? Tabare Ramos was there, of the ones that I can remember, and being able to see them and get autographs from them. But there wasn't much soccer going on. So those memories, the few that I have, are the ones because that was the only soccer really around growing up. We'd watch soccer on TV once a week because that was all they showed on Univision or Telemundo. I can't remember which station it was. And it was one game on Sunday that they would show, and that was about it. But regardless of what was going on in Austin or in the United States at the time, all I thought about was training and getting better, training and getting better, training and getting better. I would say I was one of the better players in Austin, but when I would go to like a national team event or something, I could still see that there was players that were much better than I was. So it would
Hmm.
always keep me like focused on
Do you
that.
remember names
Okay,
that would? Do you remember names that would drive you? Like, who was some of the better players, or was it just, uh, not so much names, but just knowing that higher level was out there?
no, there was names. The very first event that you could go to, like national team event, was like a mass camp in Boston, Massachusetts, where they took 100 players, and we were probably like 12 or 13. And that was the first time that I don't know how many times that ever happened, but Freddie Adu was there
Yeah.
and Giuseppe Rossi was there. So you had to wear Nike cleats because it was Nike sponsored the national team and they gave you cleats and it was just like required. But for whatever reason, I don't know how he got out of this, but Giuseppe Rossi had like some other brand of cleats. So you could tell right away, like, why is everybody having to wear Nike and this kid gets to wear like some Italian brand? So he was already in Italy. He must have came
Hmm.
back to do this camp and play with us. But him and Freddie were a big step ahead of anybody else. And
Right.
they had brought in 100 kids. So those, there's probably, I mean, I don't know how many players from there turned out pro, but a good chunk of players probably went on to play professional soccer. But those two by far were much better than everybody else. Um, and then going into like the first national team camps, neither of them participated. I think Freddie did, but Freddie was younger, so sometimes he would even play above our age.
Yeah, because
Um,
you were in '87, and he would have been playing up with you guys, right? With those national team camps. Yeah.
he was always playing up and probably called into like any national team camp because he could qualify for it because of his age. So maybe even
Right.
beyond our age, because I think sometimes he was even getting called into like the '86 national team camps. But then you go into our team, and I got to meet like Dax McCarty, who's still playing. Um, who else went on to play? Um, what's his name? Josie Altador, Michael Bradley, and those players were
Right.
already. I mean, they were better than I was, and probably most of the team was better than I was. Um, they were already much bigger physically than I was, faster and stronger. So I had to play like my best games to be able to even keep up with them. So every time I would come back home, it would be like, okay, I've seen players that are much better than me. I have to keep training uh, if I want to make it because I don't have like not the biggest person. I was quick, I was fast, and I had good skill, but I wasn't like strong and I wasn't fast to keep up with like some of these other kids. So that's kind of what kept me going. And the fact that I told myself, like, look, you're either going to play soccer or you're going to play soccer. There's not really anything else that I would see myself doing uh, for a long period of time that would make me happy. Um, so I'm the type of person, kind of stubborn, but if I set my mind to something, I'm just going to be relentless until I achieve it. So that's kind of where like the professional soccer dream and all these events and things that I got to experience in my youth would keep driving me into like this dream of, okay, one day I want to be there, I want to be there, I want to be there, I want to be there.
Right, right. Because like you mentioned, I think, you and Willie played that one season together at Campbell. He got drafted by the Kansas City Wizards. Actually played a year with the host of our next panel, U.S. soccer legend Jimmy Conrad. Was I think teammates with your brother in Kansas City. But the you took a different route. You left after your freshman year. You went down to Mexico. Might not have been the first time you did that, if I remember right, but you went down there and tried out with Santos Laguna, and ended up making the team. And so, what was, how did that come about? And tell me about, what that was like, taking on that pro soccer dream as a 19-year-old and going a different path than your brother did.
I mean, if I would have had the opportunity to go pro before even going to my freshman year in college, I would have taken it. At the time growing up, you saw players finish out college and get drafted, and that was the norm. Uh, Barely when I was starting, like maybe my junior year or senior year, they had taken somebody into the draft that hadn't graduated from college. He was out of high school. So you started to see players. Um, I already had gone to Mexico before and seen players
Mm-hmm.
who were like 16, 17, 18 already training with the first team. So I was like, well, if that's the way to get there, college isn't really going to help me achieve my goals, which is to play professional soccer. How can I get out of here as quickly as possible? So my dad just had a friend from his hometown and was like, "Hey, Santos are having tryouts. Do you think Sonny would want to come?" And I was like, "Yes, when is this tryout? Let's go." So I went after my freshman season in that winter break. We showed up to Torreon, a whole bunch of kids on a dirt soccer field, tried out, and somehow I guess I did good enough for them to want me to stay. And my dad was like, "No, you can't stay. You got to finish out your college year because you've already committed to them. They've
Mm-hmm.
given you a scholarship. That wouldn't be very fair." So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back. And then what kind of hurt me a little bit was Santos had done really well on that youth team that I was trying out for, and they got invited to the Dallas Cup. And to me, being in Austin and knowing what the Dallas Cup represented, I had gone twice to Dallas Cup and never got out of my bracket because obviously at the time, Dallas Cup was the best of the best tournament that you could play in. So Santos was going to go, and they called my dad and like, hey, can Sonny come with us to the Dallas Cup? And I was like, of course I want to go to the Dallas Cup. But I call Coach Hess and I'm like, hey, Coach, this is what's happening. They want me to go. And for whatever reason, because of NCAA, I couldn't go play with Santos in Dallas Cup, which are some of the times, I guess, when you look back at your career, you're like, if I would have played with them and maybe played against a European team when I was playing, probably some of my better soccer, uh,
Yeah.
what could have happened. Because Santos, I don't know if they probably ended up, I don't remember if they won or made it to the final, whatnot, but being on a team like that and European teams were coming, they were playing in the super group. So playing against
Hmm.
like Manchester United and Real Madrid that used to like actually come and play in those tournaments. So I was kind of upset that I didn't get to play in that tournament, and I was kind of happy that Santos would even like offer me the possibility to come play with them. Um, but after the summer, they called my dad again, and they were like, "Hey, we want him to come back." And I guess my dad was a really good negotiator because they sent us a contract before even going over there um, to sign. So I guess what they had seen in December 5 months ago was enough, and
Hmm.
they hadn't seen me since to want them to give me a contract from all the way over there. So we went down there and we signed the contract. And I mean, my dad didn't have to tell me, like, hey, is this what you want to do? I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah,
Um,
because what was that? So what was it like? Take me. You're an American kid, grew up in. Of course, your dad's from Mexico, and your mom, her family's from Mexico as well. But you grew up here in Cedar Park, and you're moving down there to Torreon, and you're playing with kids who this is their dream. They've been wanting to play for this club their whole lives. Uh, you know, Tell me what the setup was like down there, and I guess how you were sort of treated, not just by the coaching staff who obviously wanted you to be there, but by the other players who you were coming in to take their spot.
so I made a huge mistake growing up and not practicing enough Spanish. Uh, I guess, I mean, in Cedar Park, we didn't have many Hispanics in high school or even growing up. Uh, I can't remember that many even in my school. So it wasn't like I had the opportunity to speak that much Spanish. I took Spanish classes and I understood everything because my dad would talk to us in Spanish pretty much 100% of the time. But I would always
Hmm.
talk to them back in English. So that was like my biggest mistake is going over there. I mean, obviously I look Hispanic. I mean, I can't look more Mexican than what I do, but then not being able to speak the language, it's like, darn it, this is gonna suck. But like you said, their dream of playing for Santos, and I mean, when you're on a youth team, when I got there, the kids, I stayed at what's called the Casa Club, which is like I wouldn't say hotel because that is far beyond it. Like the apartment complex where the kids that aren't from Torreon stay at. So
Hmm.
there was about 40 kids in this place from 13-year-old to like 18-year-olds. No, 13 to like probably more to like 22-year-olds that would stay in this house. There was like a police, like a security guard there,
Hmm.
and like a lady that would come cook. She wouldn't cook breakfast, so breakfast was there, and it was like toasted bread that was already toasted, yogurt, and cereal, and that was the option to eat before practice. She would
Before
come for
training, that was
lunch,
what
and
you
she would before training, yeah, she would. make she'd come and make an actual meal for lunch and make enough for you to heat it up for dinner. So that was like your choice. Um, I hadn't gotten paid yet, so I was there. I had like I remember taking one suitcase worth of clothes. Um, and that was pretty much the food. If you didn't eat the food, like I think my parents had probably gave me money. So if I didn't like what I saw, I could probably go out and buy something. Most of the kids there didn't have that opportunity. So it's like whatever the lady made in the middle of the day is what you were going to eat, and you had to eat the same thing for dinner. So it wasn't like this grand like setup coming from Campbell,
Yeah.
which is a small school, but you had like all these cafeterias and all the food that you could ever want to eat in front of you. It was your choice on if you wanted to eat healthy or unhealthy, but more than enough like options to choose from, and a Chick-fil-A, which is like always packed because that was the only thing at Campbell. And then going to like this, where it was like, okay, I'm gonna have to eat this food and then I have to eat the same food at night because that's really all there is to eat, or am I gonna spend my money and go buy food? So that was the setup. I had my own room because my room didn't have AC, so nobody wanted to be in that room. And I was like, well, okay, that's okay with me. Torreon's hot in the summer. It's kind of like Texas. It's pretty hot. So I had a fan and I was okay with it. Um, they gave us one uh, training kit. So it's like a jersey, a set of jersey, shorts, and socks, and that was it. And you had to wash your own clothes and hang it. Then you'd wake up the next morning and it was like stale because you hand washed it with like a bar of soap, but you didn't use like fabric softener. So you would just like hang it. There was like a pool in the middle of this complex, but there was no water in it ever. It was just like a, I don't know if they just never filled it up or it didn't work, but there was just like a cord that like went all the way across the pool and you would just like hang all your clothes up there. You'd find it, take it off, put it on, and go to practice. Um, the place we stayed at wasn't anywhere near where we practiced. It was probably like 25 minutes away. So you had to, I can remember going like the first day of training. I'm like, well, how are we going to get to practice? The kids were
Mhm.
like, we just asked for a ride. So we put on our clothes and I went out with them and we'd hitch a ride in the back of trucks and kind of like where he veered off and where we wanted to keep going, well, we'd jump off there and then we'd get another truck that was going in the direction that we wanted to go to and climb up on their truck. We didn't know who these people were. Sometimes
That's
you'd
like a
see,
new
uh,
that's like another version of like it takes a village to raise a soccer team basically. Like is that like what was
it
happening?
does.
Like you'd be wearing your Santos stuff and everybody would just know, oh, they need to ride to practice.
They would know that we're part of Fuerzas Básicas, which is like the youth academy. Um,
Uh-huh.
and everybody in Torreon, I would say like 95% of people from Torreon are Santos fans. Some cities that you
Hmm.
go to, like they're more America fans than there's the team in their own city, or they're Chivas fans more than the team in their city. But not in Torreon. People were diehard Santos fans. So as long as the first team was doing good, people were gladly to like give you a ride, knowing that you were a kid going to practice. So that wasn't ever an issue. Uh, you would get lucky sometimes and see like a an older player that had a car and he would pick everybody up. Like that was in that little group. He'd give them a ride to training. And then you're like, okay, good. I'm going to make it on time to training today because I don't have to take like three different cars to get to the training facility. Um,
Right.
but being at Santos, um, it was just like another wake up call. It was like, okay, you're here at this place. It People think of professional soccer as like, wow, this is like glamorous. Like these guys are on TV and they're playing in these stadiums and all these people are yelling and screaming. But like to get there, at least at that time and in Santos, I'm sure times are changing and stuff is. It definitely is much nicer in Torreon now. Um, it wasn't glamorous at all, and soccer was leaving people on the wayside left and right. You would see people
Right.
within that little like housing thing that we were at that would get injured and they'd get sent home. Like they wouldn't pay for their rehab. They're just like, you know what? That's all right. We're done with you. Uh, Go out, and new kids would come in, and the kids would be there for like 2 weeks, and then like, oh, yeah, you didn't make the cut. We're sending you back to wherever you came from. So it was like, okay, I'm here. I know what I want to do. I can see the competition. I could see the first team training because we would train at the same fields. Be like, okay, these guys are pretty good, but I think I can play with them. So let's keep working. And I told myself that if I didn't play before 20, that I would retire from soccer because then I'd be chasing a dream that would almost be impossible. Um, so I'd go to training. Actually, the very first paycheck that I got, I moved out of that place. I was like, I'm done moving out of, like I need to move out of this place. So
And how
I'm
much do you remember
not
how
gonna.
much the first paycheck was?
So I got paid 8,000 pesos a month, which the dollar to peso ratio was kind of close to 10, but not really 10. So it was like 800 bucks um, a month. I got
Mm-hmm.
400 every 15 days. But that was more than enough for me to live off of. I called my
Yeah.
mom, I called my parents, and I was like, hey, I need a car because I can't. I moved away from where all the kids were going and hitching rides. I didn't know how to hitch a ride from wherever I had moved from. I'm like, you need to help me and you need to bring a car. So they brought me a car, and that was like another strike against me that I had my own car and not everybody else had a car. So I didn't speak Spanish. I had my own car. I was from the US and there wasn't a lot of Americans at the time playing in Mexico. So I made sure to wear my shin guards every day at practice because I knew that my own teammates, some of them didn't want me to succeed. Uh, so it was, I grew up quick in that place by
Right.
myself. Um,
Right. And you said you set that goal of yourself to make it pro before 20, and like you made your debut in right November, the year before you were going to turn 20, I guess, like you said, you get to Torreon, and you're like, oh man, this is not the glamorous life that I thought being a professional soccer player was going to be. But then the first time you get to pull on that jersey and step inside the stadium, your parents are there. You know, how did that match up with the fantasy or the dream that you sort of had when getting to accomplish that, and then going from there?
that week, actually the 2 weeks leading up to that game are kind of like there was a divine intervention for me to be able to have all that set up. Like God was just like, you know what? I'm going to put you in this perfect scenario. It was kind of building up months back because the US national, like there wasn't many kids playing outside of the US at the time for kids at my age. Most of the kids were in college still. There was some players starting to play pro. So when I signed, there was just more buzz, I guess, from like the US national team and getting invited into stuff and then getting invited to
Mm-hmm.
the Mexican national team. So like all this stuff was just like leading up to that day when the coach was like, we need a player to fill in because one of our players got hurt and they sent me over
Mm-hmm.
there. And then just doing well and the coach actually considering playing me and then him like, no, I'm not going to play you yet, but come back next week. And then just, I don't know what came over me because that team was had really good players on Santos, but I was just playing really well. And then for the coach to tell me beforehand, like, hey, I'm going to play you this weekend. Uh, so like be ready and me being able to call my parents and tell them like, look, I'm going to play. And I think before hung up the phone, my dad was probably already out of the door, uh,
Uh-huh.
driving over here or driving to Torreon to come watch the game. And I mean, I've played in a lot of games my whole life, but that was probably one of the best games I've ever played, which kind of sucks because it was my first game. Like you would hope that like my best game would have came later on with more experience,
Mhm.
but whatever was like that feeling of just like, man, this is pro soccer. I can't wait to show like these people who I am. And going out there and not really, since I didn't know what it was, I wasn't scared of it.
Yeah.
Uh, it was later on when I would get more nervous playing than that first game that I played in. And you would think it would be backwards, but that first game was just like, man, this, I was tearing it up. And I was like, I knew I could do it. And I was tearing it up. And at the end of the game, I was like, this is, I can totally do this. And all this, like, my coach was really happy. The fans were happy. They were clapping for me, even though we had tied and we were fighting not to go down to second division. So that was, if I had to go back and choose one game, that was probably the best game I've ever played, professional game my whole life, which
The first one.
sucks. Which, yeah, the first one. That's probably not a good
Yeah.
thing to say, but that's what I think it was. And then after that season, the team they brought in all these really amazing soccer players, and then I saw like, okay, these guys. I'm a pretty honest person with myself, and I was like, okay, I've worked hard my whole life, and I don't know how much more I could have done, maybe within the circumstances that I had. Um, and these players are better than me. Like I could
Hmm.
keep up in a sense that when you know you're not the best player on the field, you want to get the ball and you want to pass it to the best player on the field. So
Right.
growing up as a
Right.
kid, everyone's like, let's pass the ball to Sonny, 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 Sonny. And I'm like, okay, let's all get the ball here. Then when you realize like, okay, I am not the best player, let me change a little bit how I play because I need to get the ball to the best player on the field. And there was a list of players on our team that were much better than me. So it was like the bottom of the food chain. Can I get any minutes to play? Because these guys are amazing soccer players. And that when they brought in those players, it took about like a year and a half for Santos to like start meshing. And then Santos won like final, semifinal, lost in the final, had like a streak of like 3 years of like making it to every single thing and dominating because of
Hmm.
that core team that they had brought in um, with amazing players. So it was still good to be out there with them, but I still know that, I mean, I could play with them, but inside of me, I'm like, okay, these players that play similar positions to me are far more advanced than I am. Uh,
Yeah. And there was a lot happening for you at that sort of that juncture in your career because I remember you telling me you get down there, you make the first team within, several months, and like you said, you were getting called in to U.S. youth national team camps, and then all of a sudden, because of you were playing at Santos and doing well, it was the U20 World Cup that was coming up, and Mexico wanted you as well. What do you, I guess, and then the fact that you're going pro, or you make your debut. What about that period do you sort of reflect upon the most, and like what are you proud of, and what do you maybe like? What do you think about that maybe could have been different, or any decisions that you would make differently at this point in your career, having experienced everything?
I would I would say I'm pretty proud of myself. Uh, Proud of myself and grateful for the people
Hmm.
that helped me get there. Uh, like my parents, my coaches, my family, my friends. Um, so I don't regret anything. And all that was like kind of like on a high because it was like everything I wanted at that one time, all this great things happening. Um, what I regret is nothing really, but what I wish I could have changed would have probably been to have somebody there who could have maybe helped me mentally,
Mm.
like be able to process everything that was happening and still perform. Because now it went from like being a fun game that I love playing, that I still love playing. And then once I made the first team and started to play, then it became like, okay, this is fun, but we have to win. This is fun, but these guys that are trying to like make a living and they're not nice. They You're on the same team, but you're not on the same team because you're competing to play. Uh, Somebody to like help me understand all of this and then probably make me stronger mentally and being able to like, okay, you made a mistake or whatever, not a big deal. Let's keep moving forward and not dwelling on whatever happened. Um, it changed quickly from like being fun and this goal to then making it and being like, okay, this is what it looks like behind the scenes. Uh, I'm gonna have to step it up, and wish I would have had somebody there to give me better information and to help me and be a better mentor. Um, but I was in Mexico, far away from my family, far away from my
Yeah.
friends, chasing a dream to be a professional soccer player. So I think now looking back, I think I could have done a lot better and played more games, more significant minutes, just done more as a soccer player in my career. But I also look at other players and see how they had great success but didn't end up playing as many years as I have. They
Right.
somehow peaked and then fizzled out so much that not one team wanted them. And I've been playing this whole time and I've never had an agent, um, never had anybody who was looking for teams for me. I would just go from team to team and teams wanted me without me having to do anything. So that part, I'm like, okay, well, I must have done something right for teams always to want me playing for them and not having an agent and not having somebody move me around. Uh, so I hopefully brought something to the table for them. But for me, I think um, I wish I would have been the smarter player that I am now with the legs that I used to have before.
Yeah, and I mean, you went on quite a quite a runner. You stayed in Mexico for like you said, you had longevity. You were there for 10 years. You played, you were on loan at Merida. You played with Atlante and I think Coxa and Dorados. You know, how, I guess, what was it like being down there, like you said, away from family, just making it on your own and kind of figuring things out? What did you learn through those years about, what the life of a professional soccer player really entails, especially in a country like Mexico where you're kind of floating between first and second division. You're seeing a lot of different things. You're in a lot of different contract situations. I guess just what was that like behind the scenes?
mean, Mexico probably behind or even with, like when you think of South America, North America, in terms of soccer, like Brazil, Argentina, about like the passion that people live. But I think Mexico's up there. Uh, as a country, there's not really any other sport that people play besides soccer. Um, so all eyes are on soccer, um, which is great. Like the people make the game more fun. Um, I love playing in front of people, whether they're cheering for me or against me. As long as there's people watching, then it makes me want to do something to keep these people entertained. So Mexico was great for me. I mean, I knew a lot of the US, but during that time, I knew more of Mexico than I did the US. I went to probably every single state in Mexico for to play games, to visit for vacation, whatever, but I ended up knowing almost all of Mexico during those
Hmm.
10, 11 years that I was down there. Um, I got to see probably in my early years, I was just basically going to training. I tried going to school for 6 months. I was like, this is taking up too much of my time. I can't focus on soccer and go to school. So I got out of school in Mexico, basically go to train. And then it was kind of like, you can do whatever you want. And I was so young at the time that I wasn't much of a person that would go out at night, but I could and probably still could wake up the next day in the morning and train and be perfectly fine and nobody could notice. I got really good at video games because video games you could lay down or sit down and relax. It wasn't tiring on your legs and you could sit there and play video games. So I would play a lot of video games. Didn't think about doing much else. I would often go to the gym. So it's pretty easy days. Uh,
Hmm.
it's like the easiest you could ever think of as a job. It was like, is this really what I get paid for? Like, this is the dream, and it is a dream. It's the best job, and I'll tell anybody like, you might do this, you might do that, but playing professional soccer is the best job. Um, Later on in my career, because you just have so much time, you have time to do things, but at the same time, the older you get and the more competitive soccer gets, you have to like think about your body first and like, okay, am I willing to like I lived in Cancun, am I willing to go to the beach after practice on like a Thursday and be out in the sun for like 4 hours? How long is it going to take me to recover from that? I'm like, nah, it's not worth it. So I would stay inside and wouldn't go to the beach in Cancun. But as I started to get older, I started to think, okay, what am I going to do? What do I want to do after I'm done playing? So
Hmm.
those kind of thoughts, probably 28, 29, 30, started to come like, okay, what am I going to do after I'm done playing soccer? And I have a lot of time to think about it and still have a lot of time to think about what that might bring.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that because you've had, such a, a nice career, and you've gotten to accomplish things like coming back home and playing in front of your friends and family the last 2 years with Austin Bold, and I'm sure that opportunity could be there for you again to keep going with the Bold, and but obviously there's a new team in town, Austin FC. I know that's always been a dream of yours to play for the biggest professional team in town that you can. But I guess, how are you processing right now? This idea of when to hang it up and, what to keep, you know, where you're at right now with your body, with, your future, your coaching. I guess how are you sort of, where are you right now with your decision to keep playing or not, as we're heading into getting close to preseason in 2021?
You're
Million
gonna
dollar
think I'm
question, huh?
crazy, but a $1 million question. Um, I don't even think about it. I'm the type of person that like if it's gonna come, it's gonna come. I'll be ready for whatever comes. If it's playing, I'm always ready to play. If it's
Hmm.
having to say goodbye to the fields, then it's goodbye to the fields. And I'll have probably I'll have more free time to do a lot of other projects that I like doing. But I don't worry about it. Um, if I worry about it, then I'll get more gray hairs, and I don't want any more gray hairs. So just kind of live stress free and enjoy the moment. And I think I'll be happy either way. I know if I don't play and I say I'm going to be happy either way, I think I still will be happy, just kind of moving on into something else. It's going to be soccer related, whatever I do. I don't think I could ever see myself doing anything that isn't soccer related. I've already been coaching for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years here in Austin. So I got to
Hmm.
kind of see what it's like to coach youth soccer, kind of hopefully give back what I've learned to the kids, and hopefully I've done a good job to them. So I think I'll be happy with whatever. I don't think about it right now. There really isn't anything. So I'm not having to worry about anything. If there's options coming up, well, then I'll have something to worry about. But whatever I do, and I mean, I can only play soccer for so long. I'll be here in Austin trying to help as many kids as I can reach the same goals that I did and hopefully surpass them and have soccer players in Austin playing for big time clubs around the world. I think that would be something that I would feel even more proud to say, like, I'm from Austin and having all these players play around the world on top teams.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean we're gonna hear from some guys on the next panel that had to make that transition as well from from the pitch to the sidelines, and we'll have U.S. soccer former World Cup veteran Jimmy Conrad hosting Luchi Gonzalez and Matt Jordan to talk about that. But before I let you go, Sonny, I do want to kind of talk about I know how proud you are to be from Austin, and it must be really cool to see and to be here for this city's biggest moment in its soccer history, having the Bold for the last 2 years, and now Austin FC coming on board, and the academy, and just the amount of people that are excited and buzzed about Austin FC and soccer in this city. What's it like for you to be a part of that, and how do you want to be a part of continuing to grow the sport even after your playing days are done here locally?
I am very proud to be here. And when we were playing in Mexico, the coach or somebody else would say, like, you got to think about the people that work 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 all day, Monday through Saturday, just to show up on Sunday and watch you guys play. Like, that has to be motivation. So I would say the same thing to the players playing in Austin, whether it's Austin Bold or Austin FC. Like, you have people in Austin now that are behind you that want to see you succeed, that care so much about Austin, and now you get to represent them in a professional soccer setting. Like, we've been waiting for this time to come, and I know that, and I hope that these players will do a great job because people like myself and there's a ton of other players and people that are around the soccer community that just care so much about the city that definitely want to be well represented in these games. It does mean a lot to be from Austin and to be from here and to have played here and grew up here. So I see myself doing something. I don't know what it is. I kind of always like new adventures, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
what that would bring to me, but I'm always open to new stuff. I'm getting my coaching license just in case. I don't know if I see myself as a head coach, assistant coach, um, somewhere, but I'm gonna keep that possibility open, uh, and we'll see what comes up. But definitely plan on staying here in Austin and doing anything I can to help anybody that's living here grow as a soccer player.
Yeah, I guess how would you encourage new fans of the sport or people that are new to Austin to you know where should they look or where should they kind of give their energy to help the Austin soccer community that you know and that you grew up as part of, and I guess just help grow the game here locally.
I think for the people that are coming from out of town, could probably even help the people that are from town. Uh, if you're coming from out of town, from like a bigger city, they might have like a better soccer culture. I think Austin's still developing its own identity within the soccer community. The only thing that I would ask for in all the games, whether it be Austin Bold or Austin FC, is that when the players step on the field, there's no better feeling than to feel like this electricity in the stadium. So if
Mm-hmm.
those fans were able to make that happen each and every game, positively for the home team and then for the away team to like walk in and be like, dang, the stadium's completely packed and they're all cheering for Austin, like you're gonna feel a little bit nervous before the game starts. So hopefully we can cause that effect within the stadium that just people like are scared to come play against the teams from Austin. And there's just so much noise and so much like energy coming from the fans that the players are feeling it on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I know that day's coming soon. Whenever COVID lifts and we can all pack in a stadium, I think that the atmosphere is going to be electric. And people like you and people that came before you. I know Wolfgang Sunholz and you know all those players that have risen through Austin are going to be part of that. And I know you're going to be part of that for years to come. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective, some of those stories from your early days and your memories of going up through Mexico. It's just been great to hear from you, and thanks for doing this. Thanks for hopping on.
Now, like I said, I appreciate it and I appreciate the Striker Texas. I wish you guys, I don't say wish you good luck because I don't think you guys need luck. I think you guys are prepared and you're going to do a great job. So uh, I'm just happy that there's more of a soccer presence within our city and growing within the state.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sonny Guadarrama. And like I said, coming up next in the final panel of the 2021 Texas Soccer Summit, it'll be Jimmy Conrad, U.S. soccer legend, hosting Matt Jordan, the Houston Dynamo's VP and general manager, and Luchi Gonzalez, FC Dallas head coach, to talk about the transition from the pitch to the sidelines in the front office. For Chris Bils, a co-founder and senior writer at the Striker Texas. This is the 2021 Texas Soccer Summit. Thanks so much for watching and have a great night.